Marhaba, welcome to Cooking with Habibi. My name is Maya, and before we get started on episode 3, I just wanted to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone who's been following me on this journey. I just also want to say that, times are trying right now for all of us, and I hope these videos have been enriching your life a little bit with some new things to cook, some different ideas to explore, and I hope you stay safe and well. And until we can gather over a table, over a hot meal together, I wish you well. So today's episode, we are going to make 2 different vegetarian dishes. We're going to get started with Kibbeh Bi Zeit, which is a little twist on the traditional kibbeh. Kibbeh is a pretty well-known Middle Eastern dish that involves minced meat, bulgur. Sometimes it can be in a pan, or it can be made into a little almost like handheld little kibbeh footballs. Tiny little things filled with minced meat and pine nuts and onion. They are freaking delicious. My Aunt Varsenique makes the best. But today we are going to do it as a vegetarian dish with potatoes, bulgur, and some other things. And our second thing we're going to make today is Loubieh Bi Zeit, which is essentially a green bean, which translates to green beans in oil. But there's a lot more to it than just oil. So grab your ingredients, get yourself set up, and let's get started on episode 3. So the first dish we're going to be preparing today is Kibbeh Batata Bi Zeit, which translates to kibbeh, no translation, batata, potato in a pan, Bi Zeit. So kibbeh basically is, it's a minced meat with bulgur and onion, and it's either served in a big pan and baked, or it can be done, like I said, with like almost like little meat pies that you can hold in your hand and eat that way. Today we're gonna do it in a pan, but we're gonna put a twist on it and do it with potatoes. So the trick that I have found in making this without too much moisture is that I prepped in advance my potatoes. I went ahead and I scrubbed and boiled 6 potatoes, peeled, just regular like Idaho potatoes. 6 of them washed, peeled, and boiled last night, and I let them cool in the fridge overnight and just get really nice and cold before I handle them. I find that when I do that, the starches tend to bind well together for this dish specifically. So I went ahead and did this. I boiled my potatoes last night. I just took them out of the fridge and mashed them just now. So my potatoes are ready, boiled and mashed. The next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to soak 1.5 cups of bulgur in water for about 20 minutes while I prepare the rest of the ingredients. So bulgur is basically like a cracked wheat that is used a lot in Lebanese dishes. Like we put it in tabbouleh, in kibbeh. I mean, you name it, not really. There's a lot of dishes that have bulgur in them. So I'm gonna go ahead and soak this. So here's the thing, if you can't find bulgur, you could probably use couscous, like small, fine couscous. You can use cracked wheat, which is essentially bulgur. You can use anything that's small. So bulgur is kind of a smaller, so couscous would work great, but you're going to want to soak it. And we're not looking to cook this through. We don't want like crunch in the kibbeh, but we're just looking for some texture. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in some cold water for about 15 minutes while I prepare the rest of the ingredients. Whoops. And soak it. Make sure all the water, I have 1.5 cups of bulgur. I'm going to soak it in about 3 cups of water, let's say. So 3 cups of water, my bulgur's soaking, And then I'm gonna turn on my oven to 400 degrees and preheat it to stick this in once everything's incorporated. So next step is I am going to take my pan and I am going to add a little bit of olive oil to coat the bottom. Just spread it around on the sides. But because what we're gonna do is once we make this kibbeh mixture, we're gonna put it in here and you don't want it to stick to your pan. So coat it up real good with oil. I used about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in here. And I've chopped 1 large onion, julienne. I'm gonna go ahead and put that at the bottom of my dish, raw. I think I actually need a bigger dish. Let me just grab one. So let me try this again with a bigger dish. Yep. So I believe this is like I think this is 12 by 9, 13 by 9. It's the biggest one I have. And this recipe is gonna make enough for 6 to 8 people. It is vegetarian. It's pretty hearty though. Potatoes and onion. Yep, much better. That's gonna definitely fit all my onions in there. So you're gonna coat the bottom of the pan with the julienned onion. So 1 large julienned onion for the bottom of my dish. I'm gonna set that aside. And then what I'm gonna wanna do is I have a small onion quartered. I'm gonna wanna grate it into the potatoes. So I'm gonna grab my box grater. Grab a plate. So I have 1 small onion that I'm going to grate and add to the potatoes. So I've grated my onion, and whatever didn't go through the grater, I just chopped up really, really nice and fine. I'm gonna go ahead and add that to my mashed potato mixture. I'm also going to add about a 1/4 cup of chopped parsley, courtesy of my friends at Sugar Brown Farms. Thank you, Michael and Aaron. So parsley's in. I also, I try not to throw any herbs away. Here's a little trick for you. If you are not going to use the herbs you have on hand, lay them out on a sheet pan and let them dry really, really nice in the sun. And then take them and mash or put them through a grinder or with your hand, just, you know, break them apart and store them so you have dried herbs. So this is some dried mint. So I have 1/4 cup parsley, about 2 tablespoons of dried mint that I'm going to add in here that I have dried. I'm going to add just a little bit of cinnamon. I would say about a teaspoon or so. Just to give it some depth. Some salt. And generous amount of pepper. So this mixture, I'm gonna add a tad of olive oil to, literally a tad. And I am going to mix it up real nicely, taste it, and incorporate all the ingredients together. When my bulgur is ready, I'm gonna drain it really, really, really well and add it in here and mix it in. So I'm gonna mix this stuff up first. So it's been about 20 minutes. My bulgur is ready to drain. I am going to grab a fine mesh sieve and I am going to drain it. I'm gonna let it sit in the sieve for about 10 minutes to fully drain. I'm gonna push it down with the bowl and get any excess liquid out of it, because any excess liquid we have is gonna mess with our kibbeh and the consistency that it is. It will not set if we have extra liquids in the bulgur. So I'm just gonna leave that to drain for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm gonna get started on my loubieh. So let's grab the ingredients for the loubieh and make that. Okay, Loubieh Bi Zeit. It's gonna be super easy. You can fancy it up by adding some meat to it. I'm gonna just make it vegetarian today. Loubieh Bi Zeit translates to green beans in oil. It's a little more complex than that, but it is a very simple, fairly quick dish. So what I'm gonna do today is I have a pot, about a medium to smallish size pot. I'm only making this for about 4 people. I'm gonna add, it's on high heat right now. I'm going to add about 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. I've chopped 4-5 cloves of garlic. I like garlic, as you can tell. So I'm gonna put my garlic in there. I chopped half a large onion. I'm gonna add that in there. I'm gonna saute these things until they are pretty translucent and fragrant. So let's get these babies sauteed. So for this, I have about a pound and a half of green beans that I have washed and trimmed the ends. If you don't have fresh green beans, you are more than welcome to use canned. Canned works the same. When I grew up, we grew up eating it with canned. We didn't really have fresh green beans often. This is also a very cheap dish to make. We ate this often in my house. My mom made this for us because it was quick and it's very, very healthy. So I have about 1.5 pounds of green beans that I'm gonna toss in there. And I have chopped 3 tomatoes. You can also use canned tomatoes, like a can of tomato, a big can, 28-ounce can of tomato, or fresh. My local grocery store has like when fruits and vegetables start to go too soft, they put them in a basket and they're on sale. So I bought all the tomatoes from Fruit Bowl in order to make this. They were on sale, so they were ripe and just perfect for this. I chopped up 3 of them and we are going to be adding them to this. So my onions and garlic they're already starting to sizzle, make some noise, get that smell. There's nothing I love more than the smell of garlic and onion sauteing. That was generally a smell that wafted through my house growing up. I feel like we always smelled like garlic and onions going to school and stuff too. Probably not the case, but I smelled this smell a lot. And it's crazy how a smell just floods you with memories. So, okay, these guys are going. Now, we don't want to like brown them. We just want them to cook, soften up a little bit. We are going to be adding some water to this in just a minute here. So my garlic and onions are starting to cook through and kind of get a little brown. So I'm going to add about 3/4 cup of water to them. And notice I haven't really seasoned anything yet. So at this point, I'm going to add salt. About 2 teaspoons of salt, pepper, and a little bit of cinnamon. About 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. cinnamon is from Grenada. Whoops. All right, so I'm gonna let this simmer for just a little bit. Once they simmer, these onions and this garlic is gonna cook down. So I'm gonna let it simmer for about 5-7 minutes and keep an eye on it. My onions and garlic has been simmering for about 7 minutes. I am going to now add my green beans. So when I prepared my green beans, I washed them very well, drained them, cut the ends off, and tried to chop. If they were really long, I chopped them into edible pieces, about 2-3 inches each. Some I didn't even chop at all, but the really big ones I chopped up. You can leave them whole or chop them up. Or if you're using canned, go ahead and drain them really well. And yeah, you could just toss them in after you've drained them. So I'm gonna add my green beans in. Okay, green beans are in. I'm gonna toss them with the onion and garlic. I am then going to add all my tomatoes that I've chopped, and I want to break these babies up to get some of their juice into the dish. So I just wanted to show you what the Loubieh is supposed to look like in the pot now with all the ingredients in it. Now this is with the onion, sauteed garlic. I added the tomato and the green beans, added water. And as you can see, the water level is not too, it doesn't overcome all the things in the pot, but it's just enough to cover most everything. Now we're gonna lid this in just a little bit and let this simmer for about 20 minutes until the green onions the green beans are nice and cooked through. Back to the potato kibbeh. Our bulgur is nice and well drained. As you can see, it has doubled in size. Still has tiniest little crunch, just like al dente. I'm gonna slowly add this into the potato mixture and incorporate it. So potato mixture is gonna double with this in it. Grab a little spoon and start adding this in little by little. I'm gonna start with a spoon when I'm adding it, and then I'm gonna use my hands to really get it in there. A little bit of salt. I'm also keeping an eye on my Loubieh, which is simmering on the stove. It just started kind of boiling a little bit. So I'm gonna lower the heat on it to medium heat and put a lid on it. And that is, there we go. Put a lid on that. Now, our oven's been preheating. I'm gonna mix this salt in real quick to 400 degrees. We're gonna take our pan, with the onions, the julienned onions in it. And we're just gonna take section by section, we're gonna add the potato on top. So one last little section over in this corner. And we're gonna finish this off by adding, just wetting our hands a little bit and flattening the surface, okay? So this is just perfect amount of potato bulgur ratio. Just covered everything we got in here. So here is the trick. I'm gonna add a little bit of water in this bowl. I'm gonna wet the palms of my hands and I'm gonna run them across and flatten it out. Now, I am going to give it a couple, wash my hands real quick. I am going to give the potato kibbeh some slices. But I'm gonna oil my knife before I do so, my knife does not stick in there. So that's how you do that. All right, I'm gonna pop this in the oven, 400 degrees for 20 minutes. All right, guys, so it's been about 20 minutes. Our loubieh is done, our potato kibbeh is done. Let me get them out here and plate them up, show you what they're supposed to look like. You can eat the loubieh, you can eat it as is with bread, no bread, or over rice. It's completely up to you. Let me just, so it has definitely cooked down very, very nicely. We're gonna start with the loubieh. Let me just grab my pot. It is a steaming hot pot of loubieh. So my loubieh has cooked down very, very nicely. I am going to. So most of the water in here, the water has gone down significantly. My beans are cooked through. You do want liquid in this. Oh, my glasses are fogging up. So this is the loubieh, because you can see there's a little bit of sauce in here. It's a very humble dish, very simple, flavor packed and delicious. And next up, I'm gonna grab my potato kibbeh from the oven. I let it bake in the oven, 400 degrees for 20 minutes. Then I turned on the broiler and let it just kind of broil the top part for about 2 minutes. So let's see how this turned out. See, when I stick my spatula in there, nothing is sticking on here. This is what you want. That means we did it right. I like to serve this with like a couple sliced tomatoes. Ooh, it is piping and beautiful. Okay. Put a couple sliced tomatoes on the side. And I love oregano, and I love Greek oregano. And I feel like oregano or any fragrant herb would go really, really well with this. So I've chopped up some Greek oregano and I put a little bit of olive oil on it and let it sit for about the period of time that it took me to make this, so about 40 minutes or so. And I'm just gonna drizzle it on my tomatoes and drizzle on my potato kibbeh. Give it a little parsley garnish. Wouldn't be Lebanese unless it had a parsley garnish. And there you go. Potato kibbeh and loubieh. Two very humble dishes from Lebanon. I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Thank you for joining me. My cameraman was not able to join me today, so thank you for bearing with me as I learn to use this tripod and record myself. And I will see you again. We're actually skipping next week, and I'm going to start doing episodes every 2 weeks and just really take time to focus on other things also, like mental health and mental wellness in this time. It's been kind of a crazy time. So thank you for sticking it out with me. Stay strong, stay healthy, and sahtin. Enjoy. So for today's episode, I have my friend Autumn with me, and she is eating some of the lovely, we are eating some of the lovely food that I made today. And I wanted to talk a little bit. So Autumn is a fellow chef on board a boat named Kelea, and she, I know many chefs in our industry, and we all have traveled far and wide, and we all ended up here. I would say none of us, for the most part, are from here, but the topic that I would like to speak of today is that if it does well here, it belongs here. We always hear locals saying, you don't belong here, you're not a belonger. And I feel like if it does well, it belongs here. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So, in regards to food, how has traveling influenced the things that you make, you feel like?
Well, when I travel, I try to eat as local as possible. I try to taste the local flavors, try the local produce, meet local chefs if that's an option. And it's definitely opened up my palate to trying new things that normally wouldn't go together. And you see that everywhere now too, like with all these fusion restaurants, like Asian and Mexican fusion. Like my favorite restaurant is Cocomaya in Virgin Gorda, and they're Asian and Mexican combined,
fusion, right.
Which is the same thing you're talking about, like traveling, taking what you find somewhere else and mixing it with something that you already like, and just creating completely new food. Like otherwise we'd be stuck eating the same food forever.
Do you feel like it's made you a better chef, being able to travel and try different things?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of stuff I normally wouldn't try at home. Like even if we had a restaurant with Chinese food, you don't feel like you're getting the authentic flavors. You're getting American Chinese, which you've already tasted, you already know it. But when you travel, you're tasting things that you just normally wouldn't find at home.
And when you're traveling, do you feel like that stuff comes to you, or you need to make an effort to understand those things? Like, okay, so when I'm traveling, I try to go out of, there's a comfort zone when you travel, and that's usually broken down if you're traveling to a foreign place that's not like what you're used to. And you're definitely not in your comfort zone, but like, when you travel, do you feel like you try things outside your comfort zone, which you bring back and you can also try with ingredients at home,
sometimes, yeah. I mean, sometimes you can't find the ingredients that you fell in love with while traveling at home. Like when we were in New Zealand, we ate lamb all the time. But then when we came here, it's much more expensive here. They don't have as many of the cuts that they have over there. So we don't really eat it too much over here, but it gave me the appreciation for lamb. And if I have the chance, I'm not afraid to cook it now.
Right.
Because I was able to
explore it. Right. So do you feel like the statement that I said at the beginning, if it does well, it belongs here, applies to food worldwide?
Definitely.
From traveling too? So like when we travel, we bring things with us that we try to cook here, or we try to incorporate. So like an example that I want to say is the little grasshoppers that I love from Mexico. Like those are a very weird thing that people don't really love, but I love them so much, and like I try to incorporate them, and people are like scared of them, but they're actually really good in quesadillas.
Yeah.
But would you say like, so now you're comfortable incorporating lamb into your dishes, which you had the experience in New Zealand to do.
Yeah.
So you think when I say if it does well, it belongs here, like that's something that...
Yeah, totally. As long, I mean, you're always going to have people that don't like certain things. So you can put it into your food and cook with it and introduce people to it, but not everybody's going to like it, obviously.
Right.
People have different tastes. But if it tastes good to you in your food, and like, there's no reason that you shouldn't be able to incorporate it. There's no rule saying if it comes from this part of the world, or if it's only grown here, you can only eat it here.
Right.
Like, isn't rice in all Latin food? But
Right.
I don't think rice is local.
Rice comes from Asia.
Right.
Really.
So, I mean, it's already been done in history, and it's become such an integral part of their food now.
Right. So in that sense, like, what's to define what's local?
Exactly. Like, there's so many plants that have just been shared with the entire world now that are now local, but they're not really originally from that
Right.
area.
So, but like, that's a great example with the rice in Mexico. Like, rice is such a big part of Mexican food, and it's not really local to Mexico, but it is local to Mexico. You know what I mean? So who's
Yeah.
to say what's local? Like, what's pure? You know, there's nothing really. Purity in foods, I feel like, doesn't really exist because it's like a hodgepodge of everything.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on what time in history you're doing the cutoff at, right? Because aren't tomatoes not really Italian either?
Right.
But I mean, if you tell anyone that tomatoes are not Italian, their mind is just going to melt.
Blown,
'Cause
right.
It's like, tomatoes, Italian. But it just depends, like, what point in history are you going back to say that tomatoes are Italian or aren't Italian? So it's...
I feel this episode today, I just wanted to do it to kind of, all these episodes, I'm just trying to show how we're all connected with something, and like, definitely food is a good vessel for connecting people. Once again, from the ingredients, when you talk about the ingredients, or just sitting together eating something that gathers people, or cooking together. So with that said, thank you, Autumn.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you enjoy the food.